When a millionaire said, "Shall we?" to a little girl sleeping at the bus stop, no one imagined that simple gesture would forever change two lives, and perhaps awaken a heart he didn't even know he had. The dense fog covered Wall Street like a thick veil, transforming the skyscrapers into distant shadows and the streetlights into blurred beacons. Henry Scott Lewis adjusted his tie knot and checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 11:42 p.m. The meeting with the Japanese investors had extended far beyond what was expected, but the final numbers made every minute of exhaustion worthwhile. His footsteps echoed on the wet asphalt as he walked toward the building where he lived. He had dismissed his driver 2 hours earlier, preferring the solitary walk to organize his thoughts. At 32, Henry had built a financial empire that impressed even the most skeptical market analysts. His holding company controlled investments in dozens of companies, but success came with a price: loneliness. The cutting wind penetrated the fabric of his Italian suit, bringing an uncomfortable sensation that made him quicken his pace. That's when something in the corner of his field of vision made him stop abruptly. A small bus stop bench, illuminated by a weak, flickering light, sheltered a tiny figure that seemed unreal in that urban setting. A child was huddled there, trembling, under a worn-out coat that seemed to swallow her completely. Strands of brown hair stuck to her rosy cheek, cold from the weather, and her large eyes looked like foggy glass. Henry felt the warm air from his own body rise like smoke between his lips as he tried to process the scene. "It can't be," he murmured to himself, looking around for some responsible adult. But the streets were deserted, only the muffled noise of cars in the distance and that child, curled up against the wind like an injured little bird. Henry approached slowly, his heart accelerating inexplicably. He wasn't the type of man who got involved with other people's problems. His life was governed by spreadsheets, contracts, and calculated decisions. But something in that moment surpassed any filter of reason. "Hi, little one," he said softly, crouching in front of her. "Are you okay?" The girl raised her eyes, and Henry felt as if he had been struck by lightning. There was a purity in that gaze that completely disarmed him. She wasn't crying, wasn't screaming, just observing him with a confidence that seemed out of place in that situation. "I'm cold," she said in a small but firm voice. "Mommy went to get bread." Henry looked around again. There was no bakery open at that hour, no one who could be the child's mother. His executive mind began to work. Call the police, call child services, follow the proper protocols. But when he extended his hand to touch the tiny shoulder of the girl, he felt the weak warmth she still possessed, and all the rules dissolved. "What's your name?" he asked, taking off his own coat to cover her. "Lily," she answered, snuggling into the warm fabric. "Are you nice?" The simple question hit Henry like a punch in the stomach. When was the last time someone had asked if he was nice? When was the last time that mattered more than being efficient, profitable, or respected? I hope so," he said, surprising himself with his own sincerity. "Shall we look for your mommy?" Lily nodded and, without hesitation, extended her hand to him. Henry felt those small, cold fingers close around his, and something inside him broke. It wasn't compassion or heroism. It was the realization that, for the first time in a long time, he needed to do something that didn't involve winning or losing. As they walked down the empty street, Henry carried Lily in his arms when she said her feet hurt. The small body relaxed against his chest, confident, and he felt a responsibility he had never experienced before. It wasn't just about finding the child's mother. It was about discovering who he really was when no one expected anything from him except to be human. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. Henry walked through the nearby streets with Lily in his arms, looking for any sign of the child's mother. With each corner, hope diminished and concern increased. Lily had fallen asleep against his chest, breathing with difficulty, a low wheeze. That made him even more uneasy. "We need to find a warm place," he murmured to himself. Noticing that the girl's lips were turning purplish, that's when he spotted a modest small hotel 2 blocks ahead. It wasn't the type of place he frequented, but at that moment, it was perfect. As he approached the entrance, he heard a noise, coming from the side alley, someone going through trash trying to be discreet. "Lily, Lily, my love, where are you?" A female voice, laden with desperation, echoed through the empty street. Henry turned quickly and saw a woman emerging from the shadows. She was about 28, with disheveled brown hair and clothes that had once been good, but were now worn and stained. In her hands she held a bag of bread that seemed to have been rescued from some trash. "Mommy!" Lily woke up at the exact moment she saw her mother. The woman looked at Henry with a mixture of relief and terror. Her eyes scanned his expensive suit, his wristwatch, his well-groomed face, and then fixed on her daughter in his arms. "Who are you? What are you doing with my daughter?" Her voice trembled, but there was a firmness that impressed Henry. "I found her alone at the bus stop," he explained, carefully handing Lily over. "She was cold and said you had gone to get bread." The woman hugged her daughter tightly, as if wanting to protect her from the whole world, including him. "I'm sorry, I only went away for a few minutes. She was sleeping and I thought—" "You don't need to explain," Henry interrupted gently. "I'm Henry, and you are—" "Carly," she responded, still suspicious. "Carly Anderson." Henry noticed that she didn't invite him to call her by her first name, maintaining the respectful distance of someone who can't afford the luxury of trusting easily. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked, observing the thin coat Carly was wearing. "We do," she answered quickly, but Henry noticed the hesitation. "Mom, I'm hungry," Lily murmured against her mother's neck. Carly closed her eyes for a moment, and Henry saw the internal struggle she was waging. Pride versus necessity, dignity versus survival. "Look, I know we don't know each other," Henry began, "but it's very cold and your daughter isn't well. Let me pay for a room for you, just for tonight." "We're not charity," Carly responded firmly, but her voice faltered. When Lily coughed, "I know you're not," said Henry, choosing his words carefully. "But I also know what it's like to be in a difficult situation, and if it were me needing help, I'd hope someone would offer." Carly studied him for a long moment. There was something about this man she couldn't decipher. It wasn't pity she saw in his eyes, nor superiority. It was something deeper, more genuine. "Just for tonight," she finally yielded. "But tomorrow we go our own way." Henry nodded, heading to the hotel reception. He paid for a simple room and asked them to send up hot soup and milk for the child. He didn't register his full last name, just H. Lewis, a precaution that had already become instinctive. As they climbed the stairs, Carly carried Lily with effort. Henry noticed how she limped slightly, as if her shoes were hurting her feet. He also noticed how she kept her head high, refusing to appear defeated. "Thank you," she said when they reached the room. "I don't know how I'll repay you, but—" "You don't need to repay anything," Henry interrupted. "Take care of yourselves, that's all." He handed her the key and turned to leave, but Lily called out to him. "Uncle Henry, are you leaving?" "I need to go home, little one," he answered, crouching down to her level. "Can you stay? Mommy makes tasty food when there's food," Lily said innocently. Henry saw Carly blush with shame, but he also saw something else, a flash of curiosity about who this man was, who had appeared like a guardian angel on such a dark night. "Maybe another day," he promised, kissing the girl's forehead. "Now you both need to rest." As he left the hotel, Henry walked through the empty streets toward his penthouse apartment, but something had changed. For the first time in years, he felt that his life had a purpose that couldn't fit into any spreadsheet. Henry woke up before the alarm, as he had done for more than a decade, but unlike other days, his first thoughts weren't about stock quotes or the morning meeting with the board. They were about a 4-year-old girl and her mother, who had probably already left the hotel. He dressed mechanically, ate his flavorless breakfast, and headed to the office. All morning, he tried to concentrate on the financial reports, but his mind constantly wandered back to the previous night. The trust in Lily's eyes when she extended her hand to him. The wounded dignity of Carly when she accepted his help. "Mr. Lewis?" The voice of his secretary, Beatrice, brought him back to reality. "The representatives from the Korean company have arrived. They're in the meeting room." Henry nodded, picked up his papers, and headed to the meeting. But throughout the presentation, his mind was elsewhere. When one of the executives asked a question about quarterly projections, he had to ask for the question to be repeated. "Is everything all right, sir?" Beatrice asked after the meeting. "You seem different today." "I'm fine," he responded automatically, but he knew he wasn't. He couldn't concentrate anymore. At 11 in the morning, he asked to cancel his afternoon appointments and left the office. He went to the hotel where he had left Carly and Lily, but the receptionist informed him that they had left early. "Did they leave any message?" he asked, feeling a twinge of disappointment. "No, sir, they just thanked us and left." Henry spent the rest of the day driving around the city, looking for them without success. He visited shelters, health centers, anywhere they might be. No one had seen them. That's when he decided to do something he had never done before. He hired a private investigator, not to invade their privacy, but to make sure they were okay. 3 days later, Robert Macy, the investigator, knocked on his office door with a file. "I found the information you requested," he said, sitting in front of Henry's desk. "Carly Anderson, 28 years old, former cook at Mason's Bistro. Lost her job when the restaurant closed during the pandemic. Has a daughter, Lily, 4 years old. No record of the father." Henry opened the file and saw a photo of Carly smiling, taken before the crisis. She was wearing an apron, holding a plate that looked like a work of art. There was life in her eyes, hope. "Where are they now?" he asked. "Municipal shelter in the east side. But there's a huge waiting list. They stay there during the day, but at night," Robert paused, "at night, they sleep wherever they can." Henry felt his chest tighten. "And the girl? Lily?" "She has respiratory problems. She's been through some medical emergencies. Her mother does everything to get the medications, but it's not always possible." Henry closed the file, but he couldn't get the image of Carly smiling in that photo out of his mind. There was so much talent, so much dignity, and now all that was being wasted on the streets. "One more thing," continued Robert. "Carly received a job offer yesterday. Kitchen assistant in Riverside, low salary but includes housing. Will she accept?" "From what I gathered, yes. She doesn't have much choice. She'll travel at the end of the week." Henry dismissed the investigator and remained alone in his office. He looked out the window at the city stretching below. Millions of people running, fighting, surviving. For the first time, he saw beyond the numbers and business opportunities. He saw people. That night, he couldn't sleep. He got up and went to the kitchen of his apartment, a space he rarely used. He opened the refrigerator and saw only water, energy drinks and frozen food. There was nothing that resembled a home. He thought of Lily asking if he was nice. He thought of Carly, with all her dignity and talent, being forced to accept any opportunity that came her way. He thought of himself, surrounded by luxury but completely alone. That's when he made a decision that would change everything. It wasn't just about helping Carly and Lily. It was about finding a meaning that his life had lost long ago. He picked up the phone and called his lawyer. "I need you to research the purchase of a commercial property in the city center," he said. "Something that could be transformed into a restaurant." "Mr. Lewis, it's almost 2 in the morning. I know what time it is. It could be a cafe, a bistro, anything, but I need it to be quick." Henry hung up the phone and returned to the window. Down below, the city slept, but he felt like he was waking up for the first time in years. In less than 48 hours, Henry did something that would normally take months. He bought an old cafe in the historic center of New York, a place that had closed during the pandemic and remained empty since then. The space had charm, large windows, original wooden floors, and a kitchen that, with some adjustments, would be perfect. He hired a renovation team working in double shifts. He spared no expense, state-of-the-art equipment, comfortable furniture, a decoration that combined rusticity with sophistication. Everything was registered in the name of his charitable foundation, keeping his name away from the official documents. During the renovations, Henry visited the site every day. For the first time in years, he felt truly excited about a project. It wasn't about profit or recognition. It was about giving someone talented a second chance. "Mr. Lewis," said Carlos, the construction foreman, "the kitchen is almost ready. Would you like to see how it turned out? Henry walked through the modern kitchen, imagining Carly working there. The industrial stoves, the stainless steel countertops, the imported wood-fired oven, all designed to allow a chef to express their creativity. Perfect, he murmured. But inside he felt butterflies in his stomach. What if Carly didn't accept? What if she interpreted it as charity? What if she had already left for Riverside? 2 days before the inauguration he had planned, Henry gathered his courage and went to look for Carly at the shelter. He arrived late in the afternoon when he knew she would be arriving with Lily. "Uncle Henry," Lily ran to him as soon as she saw him at the gate. Henry picked her up, noticing that she was thinner but her smile still lit up her whole face. "Hi, little one. How are you?" "I'm good. Mommy said we're going to live far away from here." Henry looked at Carly, who was approaching with a cautious expression. She was thinner too, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "Henry," she said, not hiding her surprise, "what are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk to you," he responded, putting Lily down, "about the job in Riverside." Carly stiffened. "How do you know about that?" "I heard about it," he lied, realizing he had made a mistake. "Can you talk to me for a few minutes?" Carly hesitated but eventually accepted. They sat on a bench in the small garden of the shelter while Lily played with other children. "I know this will seem strange," Henry began, "but I bought a cafe in the city center. I need someone to manage the kitchen." "Why?" Carly asked directly. Because I think you have talent. I saw the photo of the award you won when you were 12. I know you worked at Mason's Bistro." Carly stared at him with growing suspicion. "You investigated me." "I wanted to make sure you and Lily were okay," he admitted. "I know it seems invasive, but—" "Invasive?" Carly stood up abruptly. "You investigated me as if I were a criminal." "It wasn't like that," Henry tried to explain, standing up as well. "I wanted to help." "Help?" Carly's voice rose a notch. "You want to help me by buying a restaurant? You think I'm some poor thing that needs your charity?" Lily stopped playing and looked at them, sensing the tension. "Mommy?" she called, worried. "It's not charity," Henry insisted. "It's work. You would run the kitchen, hire whoever you wanted, define the menu, and what would the salary be?" Carly asked sarcastically. "Or did you expect me to be so grateful that I would work for free?" "I haven't thought about the salary yet," Henry admitted, realizing how that sounded. "Of course you haven't," said Carly, calling Lily. "Because for you, people like me don't need money, they need favors." "Wait," Henry tried, but Carly was already walking away with Lily. "Don't look for me again," she said over her shoulder. "I don't need your pity." Henry stood in the garden, watching them enter the shelter. His attempt to help had turned into a complete disaster. He had hurt the very person he wanted to protect. That night, alone in his apartment, Henry realized he had approached everything wrong. He had treated Carly like a project, not a person. He thought about his need to do something good, but he didn't think about how she would feel being investigated, being treated as an object of charity. Sitting on the balcony, looking at the city lights, Henry made a different decision. If he couldn't help Carly directly, at least he could ensure that the cafe was ready in case she changed her mind. And this time it would be her who would decide the terms. 3 days passed since the confrontation at the shelter. Henry tried to immerse himself in work, but his concentration was completely lost. During an important meeting with German investors, he found himself drawing little flowers in the margin of the documents, something Lily had done on a paper she found on the floor of the shelter. "Mr. Lewis?" Beatrice called him for the 3rd time. "The Germans are waiting for your response about the investment schedule." Henry looked at the expectant faces around the table and felt an immense emptiness. All those numbers, all those projections, none of it seemed to matter anymore. "Let's reschedule the meeting," he said abruptly, standing up. "I need to resolve something urgent." He left the office under confused gazes and headed to the city center. The cafe was ready. The cleaning team had finished the day before and the place was impeccable. Henry walked through the empty kitchen, imagining what it would be like if Carly were there. "Mr. Lewis?" Carlos appeared at the door. "I brought the keys." Everything is ready for the inauguration whenever you decide." Henry took the keys, but he felt no joy. The entire project had become a monument to his own naivety. That's when his phone rang. Robert, the investigator. "Mr. Lewis, there's something you need to know. Carly Anderson left for Riverside this morning. She and her daughter took the 10 o'clock bus." Henry felt as if he had been punched. "Are you sure?" "I am. I spoke with a volunteer from the shelter. Carly said it was better this way, that there was nothing keeping her in New York anymore." Henry hung up the phone and sat at one of the tables in the cafe. He had lost his chance. Worse still, he had hurt the only person who had touched his heart in years. During the following week, Henry became a stranger to himself. He arrived late at work, left early, made hasty decisions. His partners began to question his leadership, and he had no answers. "Henry, we need to talk," said Edward Miller, his oldest partner, bursting into his office on Friday. "You're not well. You've lost 3 important contracts. This week." "I can fix this," Henry murmured, but he knew it wasn't true. "You need a vacation, or therapy, or whatever is necessary for you to go back to being who you were." Henry looked at Edward and realized he didn't want to go back to being who he was. That man who lived only for numbers and profits had remained in the past, on that cold night when he found Lily at the bus stop. That same afternoon, Henry did something unthinkable. He closed the cafe and donated it to the city, with the condition that it be transformed into a community center. He could no longer look at that place without thinking of Carly. Over the weekend, Henry wandered through New York like a ghost. He visited places he had never noticed before. Squares, parks, shelters. He began to see the city with different eyes, realizing the number of people living on the streets, the families struggling to survive. It was during one of these walks that he met Mrs. Mary, an elderly lady who sold coffee from a cart near the subway station. "You look lost, my son," she said, offering a steaming cup of coffee. "I did something wrong," Henry confessed, surprised by his own honesty. "I hurt someone who didn't deserve it." "To err is human," Mrs. Mary responded with a gentle smile. "Not fixing the error is what's cowardly." Henry drank the coffee, the best he had tasted in years, and paid much more than it cost. Mrs. Mary thanked him, but her eyes said she understood, that he needed that gesture more than she did. Walking back home, Henry made a decision. If he could no longer help Carly and Lily, at least he could try to fix the damage he had caused. He called Robert. "I need the exact address where Carly is working in Riverside," he said. "Mr. Lewis, I don't think that's a good idea. She made it clear she doesn't want any more contact." "I won't bother her," Henry promised. "I just want to make sure she's okay. And if there's any way to help without her knowing it was me," Robert sighed, "I'll see what I can do." Henry hung up the phone and looked at the city lights. For the first time in days, he felt he had a purpose. It was no longer about saving Carly and Lily. It was about finding a way to live with an open heart, even if it meant suffering. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. In Riverside, Carly discovered that reality was quite different from what had been promised. The family restaurant where she would work was actually a dirty dive bar on the outskirts of the city, where she spent 12 hours a day preparing fried food and heating frozen meals. The room she shared with Lily was a cubicle in the back, damp and poorly ventilated. "Mommy, I can't breathe right," Lily murmured one morning, coughing dryly. Carly felt her heart tighten. The air in Riverside was different, drier, and it was worsening her daughter's respiratory problems. Moreover, the salary she received barely covered the necessary medications. "Everything will be fine, love," she said, hugging Lily. "Mommy will figure something out." But inside, Carly felt she had made a terrible mistake. Every night after Lily fell asleep, she wondered if she shouldn't have at least listened to Henry all the way through. Maybe his proposal wasn't so bad after all. Maybe her wounded pride had hindered her judgment. A week later, Lily had a respiratory crisis in the middle of the night. Carly took her desperately to the public hospital, where she waited 5 hours to be seen. The doctor, a tired and overworked man, examined the girl quickly. "She needs continuous treatment," he said. "Daily inhalations, specific medications. Without this, the crises will repeat." "How much does the treatment cost?" Carly asked, already knowing she wouldn't be able to afford it. "About $300 a month just for the medications." Carly felt tears rising. She earned $600, of which $400 were deducted for the housing she occupied. With the remaining $200, she needed to buy food, clothes, and now medications that cost more than she could afford. That night, hugging Lily, who was sleeping with difficulty, Carly did something she swore she would never do. She picked up the phone and dialed information, asking for the number of Henry's company in New York. "Lewis Investment Holding, good afternoon," a female voice answered. I would like to speak with Henry Lewis," said Carly, feeling her cheeks burn with shame. "Mr. Lewis is in a meeting. Would you like to leave a message?" Carly hesitated. What would she say? That she was sorry, that she needed help, that her pride had put her daughter's health at risk. "No, thank you," she murmured, hanging up quickly. Meanwhile, in New York, Henry was receiving daily reports from Robert about Carly's situation. He knew about the precarious work, the unhealthy room, the trip to the hospital. Each piece of information was like a stab in his chest. "Mr. Lewis," said Robert during one of his calls, "the situation is getting worse. The girl is sick, and Carly can't afford the treatment. Is there any way to help without her knowing it was me?" Henry asked, pacing nervously in his office. "I can try. I know a doctor in Riverside who does volunteer work. I could ask him to seek out Carly, saying he heard about the case at the hospital." "Do that," Henry said immediately, "and let me know if you need money for medications or anything else." 2 days later, Dr. Mark Anthony, a retired pulmonologist, appeared at the dive bar where Carly worked. "Are you Lily's mother?" he asked gently. "I heard she was in the hospital." Carly looked suspicious. "Who are you?" "I'm a doctor. I do volunteer work with children who have respiratory problems. I'd like to examine your daughter if you'll allow it." Carly felt a glimmer of hope. "I don't have money to pay for a consultation." "You don't need to pay anything," Dr. Mark smiled. "It's truly volunteer work." That afternoon, the doctor carefully examined Lily and prescribed a complete treatment. When Carly asked about the cost of the medications, he said he could get free samples through a social program. "But why are you doing this?" Carly asked, still suspicious. "Because every child deserves to have health," Dr. Mark responded, "and because sometimes guardian angels appear in our lives when we least expect them." That night, Carly hugged Lily, who was already breathing. Better after the first inhalation. For the first time in weeks, she felt that maybe everything would be all right. She didn't know that miles away, a man she had rejected was taking care of her daughter in the only way he knew how, discreetly, without expecting recognition. 2 weeks later, Carly's situation took a drastic turn for the worse. The owner of the dive bar, a man named Mr. Mario, began making abusive demands. In addition to the 12-hour workday, he wanted her to clean the establishment without extra payment. "You live here for free," he shouted when Carly protested. "You think you don't have to pay for that?" "Sir, I work 12 hours a day in—" "Here," Carly responded, trying to stay calm. "And you deduct $400 from my salary for the room." $400 for a room that size is a favor," Mr. Mario retorted. "If you're not satisfied, you can leave." Carly felt the blood rush to her head. "You know what, I will." "Then go," he said with contempt. "But I hope you have another place to sleep tonight, because you're not taking anything from here." Carly left the dive bar with Lily by the hand, carrying only a bag with some clothes. She didn't have money for a ticket back to New York, didn't know anyone in Riverside, and didn't know where to sleep. She walked through the city streets with Lily, who asked where they would sleep. "We're just going for a walk first," she lied, while looking for a safe place. That's when she found a small open church. She entered and sat on the last bench, Lily falling asleep in her lap. Carly looked at the altar, and for the first time in a long time, prayed. "I don't know what to do anymore," she murmured. "Not for me, but for her. She doesn't deserve this. Child, do you need help?" A soft voice made her turn. It was an elderly nun with kind eyes. We have nowhere to stay tonight, Carly admitted, feeling tears fall. Come, said the nun, extending her hand. God's house always has room for those in need. Sister Catherine, as she introduced herself, took Carly and Lily to a small room at the back of the church. It was simple, but clean and cozy. You can stay as long as you need, said the nun. Tomorrow we'll talk about how we can help. That night, Carly hugged Lily and made a difficult decision. Her pride had put her daughter in dangerous situations for too long. She picked up the phone and called New York again. Lewis Investment. Holding, the same female voice answered. I need to speak with Henry Lewis, said Carly firmly. It's urgent. Mr. Lewis is traveling on business, the secretary responded. He'll be back only next week. Carly felt her heart sink. When she needed him most, he wasn't available. Meanwhile, in New York, Henry was in a meeting with Japanese investors when Robert called his cell phone for the 5th consecutive time. Excuse me, he said to the Japanese. I need to take this. Mr. Lewis, Carly is in a serious situation, said Robert without preamble. She had a fight with her boss and is on the street with her daughter. Henry felt the world spin. Where is she now? In a church. She found shelter for tonight, but she doesn't have money to return to New York. Cancel all my appointments, said Henry, getting up abruptly. I'm going to Riverside. Mr. Lewis, the meeting. Business can wait, he interrupted, grabbing his coat. This can't. Henry cancelled the most important meeting of the year and drove for 3 hours to Riverside. He arrived at the church late in the afternoon, his heart beating rapidly. Sister Catherine received him with curiosity. Do you know Carly? Yes, Henry responded. I came to get her. She's sleeping with her daughter. She spent the whole night crying. Henry felt a tightness in his chest. Can I wait for her to wake up? Of course, but tell me something, said the nun, studying his face. Are you the man she mentioned? The one she hurt because she had too much pride? Henry nodded, surprised. She talked about me. She did. She said she met someone in New York who tried to help her, but that she was too foolish to accept. The nun smiled. Sometimes God uses ordinary people to perform miracles. You seem to be one of those people. Henry sat on the church bench, waiting. He didn't know what he would say to Carly, but he knew that this time he would do everything differently. It was no longer about saving someone. It was about admitting that he also needed to be saved. Carly woke up when she heard footsteps in the church hallway. Lily was sleeping deeply beside her, breathing more easily thanks to the treatment Dr. Mark had arranged. Carly got up slowly and left the room. Sister Catherine, she called softly. Here, child, the nun responded, appearing in the hallway. There's someone here who would like to see you. Carly frowned, confused. She didn't know anyone in Riverside. She followed the nun to the church nave and stopped abruptly when she saw Henry sitting on the first bench, his head down. Henry? She murmured, hardly believing. He turned quickly, standing up. He looked disheveled, with messy hair and eyes red from fatigue. Nothing that resembled the impeccable executive she had met. Carly, he said, his voice laden with emotion. I heard you were having problems. How did you know? She asked, still in shock. Henry hesitated. I've been keeping track of your situation, discreetly. You had me followed? Carly's voice hardened. Not followed, just making sure. You and Lily were okay. Henry took a deep breath. I know it will seem invasive again, but I couldn't stop worrying. Carly studied him for a long moment. There was something different about him. The arrogance had disappeared, replaced by a vulnerability she hadn't expected to see. Dr. Mark, she said slowly, it was you who sent him, wasn't it? Henry nodded. Lily needed treatment. I couldn't just sit by knowing she was sick. Why? Carly asked, taking a step toward him. Why do you care so much? Henry closed his eyes for a moment. Because you two changed my life. That night when I found Lily at the bus stop, I was living like a robot. Work, money, more work. I had no purpose, no joy. And now you do, Carly, asked softly. Now I have you two occupying my thoughts all the time, he admitted. I can't work properly, I can't sleep, I can't be who I was before. Carly felt her heart racing. Henry, I know I ruined everything, he continued. I know I treated you like a charity project instead of treating you like the amazing woman you are. But I want to learn. I want to be better. Uncle Henry? Lily's sleepy voice echoed through the church. Both turned and saw the girl walking toward them, rubbing her eyes. Henry opened his arms and she ran to him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Did you come to get us? Lily asked, nestling in his lap. If your mom wants, Henry responded, looking at Carly. I came to offer a different proposal. What proposal? Carly asked, crossing her arms. Come back to New York. I bought a new place, not a restaurant, but a house, for you to live in. No conditions, no obligations, just a safe place for Lily to grow up. In exchange for what? Carly asked, suspicious. In exchange for nothing, Henry answered sincerely. I just want to know that you're okay. If you want to work, we have several opportunities. If you want to study, I can pay for college. If you want me to leave your lives, I'll leave. But first, let me ensure that you have what you deserve. Carly felt tears rising. Why would you do this? Henry looked at Lily, then at her. Because I fell in love. With both of you. With the girl who called me uncle on the first day. With the woman who preferred to struggle rather than accept charity. Henry, Carly took a step back, frightened by the intensity of the declaration. I don't expect you to feel the same, he said quickly. I don't expect anything. I just want a chance to prove that I can be the man you both deserve, even if only as a friend. Sister Catherine, who had been observing everything, from a distance approached. Child, she said to Carly, sometimes pride is our greatest enemy, but true love has no price or conditions. Carly looked at Henry, who was holding Lily with such care that he seemed like a real father. She looked at her daughter, who seemed completely at ease in his arms. She thought about all the months of hardship, all the sleepless nights, all the moments when she wished she had someone to share the burden. All right, she finally said, but with one condition. Any condition, Henry responded immediately. No, more investigators, no more surprises. If we're going to do this, we do it as partners. I want to know everything, participate in all decisions. Henry smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen on his face. I completely agree. Lily clapped her hands, and Sister Catherine laughed. It seems that God has his plans, said the nun, and they are always better than ours. The trip back to New York was different from anything Carly had imagined. Henry didn't drive to an upscale neighborhood as she expected, but to a tree-lined street in Brooklyn, where he stopped in front of a single-story house with a garden. This is it, he said, turning off the engine. Carly looked out the window and saw a simple, cozy house with a small porch and a yard where Lily could play. It wasn't a palace, but it looked like a home. You bought this? She asked, incredulous. I bought it this week, Henry admitted. When I found out you were having problems, I wanted it to be a place where you would feel at home, not intimidated. Lily had already jumped out of the car and was running through the garden laughing. Mummy, there's a dollhouse over there. Carly got out slowly, still processing the reality. Henry followed her, carrying her few bags. You don't have to decide anything now, he said. Just rest, let Lily play. We'll talk about the rest tomorrow. Where? Will you stay? Carly asked. In my apartment. This house is yours. Henry, this is too much, she protested. You can't just buy a house for us. Yes, I can, he responded with a smile. I have enough money to buy an entire street if I want. But don't worry about that now. Think of Lily. Carly looked at her daughter, who had discovered a swing in the yard and was shouting with joy. It had been months since she had seen Lily so happy. All right, she yielded. But tomorrow we'll talk about how this is going to work. Henry nodded and said goodbye, kissing Lily's forehead and waving to Carly. When he left, Carly remained alone in the house, still unable to believe what was happening. That night, after bathing Lily and putting her to bed in a room decorated with stuffed animals, Carly sat on the porch and called her only friend in New York, Julia. "You're kidding me," Julia said on the other end of the line. "The guy bought a house for you." "It's not quite like that," Carly tried to explain. "He says he doesn't expect anything in return." "Carly, no man does that without expecting something, especially a rich man." "He's different, Julia. You should have seen how he looks at Lily. And how does he look at you?" Carly was silent for a moment. "As if I were special." "You are special," said Julia. "But promise me you'll take it slow. You've suffered a lot." Carly promised and hung up the phone, but she knew it was already too late to take it slow. Henry had won her heart the same way he had won Lily's, with patience, affection, and a kindness that seemed genuine. The next day, Henry showed up with breakfast and a proposal. "I want you to meet someone," he said. He took Carly and Lily to meet Mrs. Rose, a 60-year-old woman who had been the chef of a famous restaurant before retiring. "Henry told me about you," said Mrs. Rose, shaking Carly's hands. "He wants to open a restaurant and needs someone talented to run the kitchen." "A restaurant?" Carly asked, looking at Henry. "Not as charity," he explained quickly. "As an investment. You would be a minority partner, but you would have complete control over the menu and the kitchen." Carly felt her heart race. It was everything she had always dreamed of, having her own restaurant, showing her talent, making a difference. "But I don't have experience with administration," she protested. "I'll teach you," said Mrs. Rose. "And Henry will take care of the financial part. You just need to cook." "Can I think about it?" Carly asked. "Of course," Henry responded. "But while you think, how about cooking for me? It's been a long time since I tasted a meal made with love." Carly smiled. "Are you challenging me?" "I am," he admitted. "I want to prove that you're the best chef in New York." That afternoon, Carly prepared an elaborate lunch: shrimp risotto, arugula salad with mango, and a chocolate lava cake. Henry ate in silence, savoring each forkful. "My God," he murmured after the last bite, "this is incredible." "You're exaggerating," said Carly, but she was proud. "I'm not. You have a gift, Carly. A talent that can change lives." "Including mine?" she asked. "Especially yours." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Carly and Henry talked on the porch. She told him about her childhood dreams, about how she learned to cook with her grandmother, about how life had become difficult after the pandemic. "I'm sorry," said Henry, "for everything you went through, and for being so insensitive at the beginning." "You weren't insensitive," Carly responded. "You were inexperienced with feelings, just like me." "And now?" he asked, moving closer. "Now I want to try," she said. "I don't know how it will be, but I want to try." Henry smiled, and for the first time Carly saw tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he murmured, "for giving me a chance." "Thank you," she responded, "for saving us when we needed it most." They kissed softly, and Carly felt that she was finally home. 3 months later, the restaurant Heartfelt Flavors was ready to open. Carly had worked tirelessly alongside Mrs. Rose, developing a menu that combined sophistication with home cooking. Henry had taken care of every detail, from the cozy decor to the sound system that played soft American music. On the eve of the opening, Carly was nervous. She had invited food journalists, influencers, and important people in the industry. It was her chance to show the world that she wasn't just a single mother in difficulty, but a talented chef. "Everything is perfect," said Henry, finding her in the kitchen reviewing the menu for the 10th time. "You're going to be amazing." "What if it doesn't work out?" Carly asked, her hands trembling slightly. "It will work out," Henry assured her, kissing her forehead. "But I need to tell you something before the opening." Carly looked at him, noticing something different in his expression. "What is it?" Henry took a deep breath. "Remember when I said I met you by chance that night?" "Yes." Carly frowned. "It wasn't quite like that." Henry lowered his eyes. "I was coming out of a meeting with investors who wanted me to buy Mason's Bistro. You know it?" Carly felt her heart race. "That's where I worked." "I know. I had seen your resume that morning. I had seen your photos, your awards, your recommendations. You were the chef I wanted to hire if I bought the restaurant." "What are you saying?" Carly asked, a chill running up her spine. "I'm saying that when I saw you that night, I already knew who you were. It wasn't a coincidence." Henry raised his eyes, and she saw tears. "I recognized you immediately, but when I saw Lily, when I saw your situation, everything changed." Carly took a step back, feeling betrayed. "You lied to me?" "I didn't lie, I just omitted." Henry moved closer. "But listen, Carly, I went to that meeting thinking about buying a restaurant. I left having found a family." "A family?" Tears began to fall. "You and Lily, you became my family. Everything I did after that night was out of love, not business." Carly felt the world spin. So all of this was planned? The cafe, the house, the restaurant? "The love wasn't planned," Henry said desperately. "Carly, I love you. I love you. Both more than anything. If I had known this revelation would hurt you, I would have taken this secret to the grave." "Mommy? Uncle Henry?" Lily appeared at the kitchen door, wearing a small apron with the restaurant's logo. "Why are you crying?" Carly quickly wiped away her tears. "It's nothing, love. We're just nervous about the opening." "Can I help?" Lily asked, running to Henry. Henry picked her up, looking at Carly over the girl's head. "Of course, little one. You can be our special receptionist." Throughout the opening, Carly maintained a professional smile, but her heart was in pieces. The dishes were an absolute success. The guests praised everything, and several partnership proposals emerged, but she could barely concentrate. At the end of the night, when everyone had left, Carly sat alone in the kitchen. Henry appeared at the door, hesitant. "Can I come in?" he asked. "It's your restaurant," she responded coldly. "No, Carly, it's ours. It always was ours." "Based on a lie." Henry sat across from her. "Based on love. Yes, I knew you professionally, but the woman I fell in love with was the one I met that night. The brave mother who would rather sleep on the street than accept charity. The proud woman who confronted me when she thought I had crossed the line. Henry, I could have hired any chef in the world," he continued, "but I fell in love with the woman who worked miracles with simple ingredients, with the mother who put her daughter first, with the person who taught me that there are things more important than money." Carly looked into his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid that you would think it was all manipulation." Henry took her hands. "But you deserve to know the truth before deciding if you want to build a life with me." "And if I say I don't want to?" Carly asked. "Then I'll leave. But the restaurant will still be yours. The house will still be yours. Everything I promised I'll fulfill. I just won't be part of your life anymore." Carly was silent for a long moment. "You know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "It's that you still think you need to buy my love. The house, the restaurant, all of this." She gestured around. "It wasn't necessary. I had already fallen in love with you that night at the hotel." "Carly," Henry felt his heart race. "I fell in love with the man who carried my daughter in his arms, with the man who didn't hesitate to help a stranger, with the man who cried when I rejected him." Carly smiled through her tears. "Not with the man who can buy restaurants. So you forgive me?" "I forgive you," she said, "but with one condition." "Any condition. No more secrets. If we're going to be a family, we're a real family, with truth, flaws, and everything else." Henry smiled and kissed her. "We're a family." "We are," Carly responded. "You, me, and Lily, and maybe someday someone else." "Someone else?" "Who knows?" Carly laughed. "But for now, let's focus on making this restaurant work. We have a lot of work ahead." Henry hugged her, feeling that he had finally found his place in the world. It wasn't at the top of $1 million holding company, but there in that kitchen with the smell of spices and the sound of laughter from the woman he loved. 6 months later, when Lily asked if Henry would be her real dad, he replied, "I already have been for a long time, little one. Now we're just making it official." And so, in a small ceremony in the garden of the house in Brooklyn, Henry and Carly got married. Lily was the maid of honor, and Mrs. Rose prepared the banquet. Heartfelt Flavors had become one of the most sought-after restaurants in New York, but more important than that, it had become the place where three lonely hearts found the true meaning of family. Henry never again needed investigators to know about Carly's life. Now he lived it by her side, day after day, building together a story much more